Men should be using men's restrooms and women should be using women's restrooms. And there's only one type of man, only one type of woman. There's not biological women and then some other kind of women. There's not biological men and then some other kind of men. Just men and women, and they're all biological, man, woman. Those are biological categories. They're not just ideas. They're not identities that you choose for yourself. We separate the sexes when it comes to restrooms for a reason. Just like we separate the sexes when it comes to athletic teams for a reason. And the reason is not that, oh, some people like to wear dresses and be called she, her. That's not the reason why we have men and women's sports leagues, men and women's locker rooms, men and women's restrooms. We don't separate it out based off of your idea of yourself or your preference for yourself or your desire to present as a woman or to wear a dress or to be called she, her. That's absurd. The entire reason that we separate the sexes in certain locations and certain instances is not merely to accommodate different people like different pronouns. No, it is because there are fundamental biological inherent differences between men and women. And a man cannot become a woman cannot become a man. You cannot transition. And this is something that I see even conservatives, they get sloppy with their language. They'll say things like, you don't transition kids. And I understand the sentiment. I get it. I agree with you. But also, you can't transition kids. You can't transition. There is no set number of cross-sex hormones. There is no number of surgeries. There is no number of years that you need to be doing this to earn your transition. You can't transition. You don't transition. You can't change chromosomes. So you cannot transition. You are a man. You belong in the man's restroom. You are a woman. You belong in the woman's restroom, just like you belong in the woman's sports team and the man belongs on the man, because you cannot transition out of that. It is impossible. And we have these, again, sex-segregated things for a reason. And it is not just because, oh, some people like wearing dresses. No, it is because some people, whether they like wearing dresses or not, are women. And women need to have their own space separate from men for myriad reasons, which incidentally benefit both men and women. We do these things for a reason. And the last thing that I'll say is, if a man under the delusion that he's a woman, if he would feel uncomfortable dressing like a woman, presenting as a woman, and walking into a male restroom, to a men's restroom, and being surrounded by men in his female form, well then isn't that all the more reason why we shouldn't let men into women's restrooms? Isn't that all the more evidence of why we do separate out the sexes? If a man who believes he's a woman would feel uncomfortable in his perception of his womanness, if he would feel uncomfortable as a woman walking into a male space with a bunch of men, isn't that all the more reason and evidence of the fact that we should separate the sexes? Because women have valid concerns, safety concerns, physical concerns around men. And it's just so interesting to me that the side that essentially, for all intents and purposes, claims that every single straight man is a predator or a would-be predator, that same side is the ones that say, oh, men are dangerous to women, but not if those men think that they're women. That's absurd. Your biology is your biology. I don't believe that men are all predators or would-be predators, but your biology is your biology, and you cannot transition out of your biology. If you believe in any facet that men are dangerous in some way, even inadvertently, then that deserves credence. Moreover, if you believe that men are privileged in any way, now I don't, but if you believe in that we live in a culture of male privilege, then why is it that certain men can just shed themselves of that privilege simply by saying, I feel like a woman, I identify as a woman? Does that make sense to you? If you believe that a male from birth is socialized to be privileged in some way, to have things handed to him in a way that women and girls are not, then why is it that a man can just shirk that privilege with the mere mention of, I'm a woman, actually. I identify as a woman. You tell me if that makes sense to you, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.